I'm Danny Quinn, and welcome back to the 2020 Christmas special. We're now up to day 7 on our little advent calendar, and for today's video, we're travelling all the way back to 1954 as Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye dream of a white Christmas. The film stars Bing Crosby and Danny Kaye as two singers, Bob Wallace and Phil Davis, who have worked together as a duo since the end of the Second World War. They meet sisters Betty and Judy Haynes and accompany them to an inn in Vermont, which is being run by Tom Waverley, their former commander, who's experiencing major financial difficulties and is on the verge of bankruptcy. So Wallace and Davis decide that the only thing to do is to put together a show to draw in guests and rally the duo's old army buddies to pay their proper respects to their former commander. White Christmas is, of course, named after the song of the same name by Bing Crosby. But one thing that you probably didn't know, and hell, I didn't even know this myself, is that the song didn't actually originate from the movie. Instead, the song first featured in a previous Bing Crosby Christmas-themed musical called Holiday Inn, for which it won an Oscar. This movie is actually kind of something of a loose remake of Holiday Inn. In fact, Fred Astaire, who was Bing Crosby's co-star in that film, was offered the chance to re-team with Crosby for this film, but turned it down after reading the script. And then Danny Kaye stepped into the role as Crosby's partner after another actor sadly got injured prior to filming. So going into this movie, I really wasn't sure what to expect. In fact, prior to my research for this video, I didn't even know that White Christmas was originally written for another movie. I'd always assumed that it had been written exclusively for this one. How silly I was, because this movie really wasn't what I expected in the slightest. In fact, when the movie begins, it immediately aims to distinguish itself from its brethren by loudly proclaiming that it's the first picture in VistaVision, before subjecting you to an oddly colourful war backdrop that blurs the lines between reality and theatricality. It's just kind of oddly surreal panning back from the stage-like wintry backdrop to the gritty wartime setting of 1944. It's here that we're first introduced to Wallace and Davis as they're entertaining the troops before they're suddenly ambushed by a German attack that leads to Davis rescuing Wallace from a collapsing wall that inadvertently kicks off their show business partnership. The chemistry between Crosby and Kaye is probably one of the movie's strongest attributes. The two just work off against each other very well, with Crosby especially excelling as a slightly jaded asshole, while Kaye is similarly excellent as his awkward and slightly naive foil. The duo also has excellent chemistry with their female counterparts, the Haynes sisters, both played superbly by Rosemary Clooney and Vera Ellen respectively, who both share something of a similar dynamic to Wallace and Davis, with Clooney's Betty clearly being the more maternal figure, and Ellen's Judy being slightly more naive and eager to try and break out of her sister's shadow. And because of the strong chemistry between the four leads, both individually and as a group, I'd say the romance aspect does work quite well. Although I do have to wonder if this is where every romantic comedy ever made copied its third act misunderstandings from. Just like with Babes in Toyland, the story is pretty simple and is mostly just there to bridge the film's musical numbers. But also like Babes in Toyland, the main selling point behind the movie is easily the musical numbers. And there are a lot of them throughout it. They're brilliantly choreographed, exciting, catchy as hell, and wondrously filmed in glorious Technicolor that just makes the visuals pop. And the movie is just filled to the brim with goofy and silly charm that does offset some of its slight issues. Such as the subplot involving the Haynes sisters being chased out of town by their landlord that's never brought up again. Although it does lead to this delightful little scene where Crosby and Kaye have to dress up as the sisters and perform in their place. I guess you could also argue that the musical numbers themselves feel a little bit tacked on and don't really do a ton to advance the plot, but that doesn't particularly bother me, especially whenever the musical numbers themselves are this damn good. White Christmas might not be an all-time classic in my opinion, but it's still a tremendous amount of fun regardless. Yeah, the plot is kinda thin, and the film is a little bit too long for a movie like this, but the performances are excellent, the visuals are stunning, it's jam-packed with a lot of heart, and the musical numbers are simply outstanding. They really do steal the film as far as I'm concerned. As I stated in my Babes in Toyland review, I'm pretty far from an expert when it comes to classical Hollywood, so a series like this has been strangely beneficial in getting me out of my comfort zone and discovering films that I may never have gotten around to otherwise. So there you have it. Not really much else to say about the movie besides the fact that I didn't really mention Christmas much in the video, mainly because it doesn't really factor into the plot very much, aside from a weird subplot involving the lack of snow in Vermont as well as the use of the titular song. Still, it's definitely a festive classic, and I definitely recommend watching it. In fact, I'm definitely going to consider lumping it into my yearly Christmas viewing from here on out. So, Mum, do you want to sit down and watch White Christmas with me?